Mm. And let's face it, we have been, and Steve, I know you want to jump in at this point, but we have been in some really quite serious, tricky economic times, haven't we? With the pandemic and cost of living, inflation. So let's just touch on that piece for a second. So, Steve, what's your view about where we're at with, some of those external pressures, and are we coming out of it anytime soon?
We'll deal with that one in a minute, but the answer is probably not, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah.
Let's start with a negative. I tend to look at this slightly differently, although I accept everything that you both said, actually, because I actually think this problem started at the financial crisis of 2007, 2008.
Yeah, very possibly.
And there's actually an amazing stat that since 2006, in terms of real wages, by which I mean wages above inflation, we haven't seen any movement at all. We've had generations of people coming to the workforce who've seen no return for doing so over the last 15, 20 years, which is just astonishing. So we have been building this for a long time. I've been talking about financial well-being since 2007, largely because a client back then actually asked me to go and do something on the back of a fag packet because of the financial crisis we faced then.
Yeah.
And it's been building all the time. And it should have been a bigger topic last decade. But you're quite right. The thing that's finally pushed it into the limelight for all the wrong reasons is the cost of living crisis. Is it going away? No. There was a survey out from, I think it was the ONS in the last few weeks now, a very recent survey, which showed that actually the cost of living was still the biggest problem for most people.
Yeah.
The second biggest problem was the NHS, which is clearly another major problem. And then the third one was the economy. So two of the top three issues are around finances even now.
Yeah.
So it isn't going away. Yes, things aren't as bad as they were this time last year, but that doesn't mean things are good. And I actually heard a politician this morning as I was driving around saying that actually on the doorstep, people are saying it's much better. No, they're not. No one thinks it's much better.
I would agree.
No, I think it's just I think it's really interesting, Steve, that you say about this has been coming since the last financial crisis. That actually, prior to the last financial crisis, there was workplace financial wellbeing available through the financial regulator, and strangely, that got stopped as part of the financial crisis because it was no longer affordable. So when we talk in terms of benefit trends, let's hope that this isn't a trend and is something which is, long lasting and sustained, because Steve's absolutely right. These problems aren't going away at all. And I think it's interesting that you talked about, people on the doorstep saying that things have got better. There's been a lot of talk on social media and in the news about people not understanding what inflation means. And this whole thing about the government saying, things are getting better because inflation is falling. Well, that still means prices are rising. They're just rising slightly more slowly than they might have been before. So it's all compounding, and you're absolutely right. I don't think there is any end in sight in this for quite a long time.
Can I jump in on that? Really good point, actually, Jane. Thank you. Just purely because I was doing something for another presentation next week, actually, and I'm just looking to see what the source was. Bank of England. I went through the Bank of England inflation calculator, and if you spent £10 on goods in, let's say, the beginning of 2020, to buy those same goods today would be about £12.50. So we've had a 25% rise in all our costs in just those 4 and a bit years, which shows you just how challenging life really is. And you're quite right. Inflation means going up. That's what it means.
I also wanted to just throw in, I don't know that you can really pin a date on it if you're looking back, because for me, this stems from the lack of education that we all have, and that is no different for the current generation going through school, right? No. So, if I look back to what did I learn at school about money or pensions or budgeting or anything, the answer was zero. If I then look at what my daughter's learning going through secondary school right now, you're very lucky to find even a little bit on the curriculum, and that is a systemic problem that hasn't been tackled. So if we're not teaching and learning these skills and teaching that knowledge, when they then get spat out into the workplace, all of a sudden, you know, they're struggling, and don't then understand what the benefits are and how they can help, and that whole education gap. So yeah, I think there's a whole kind of compounding problem here, that hasn't really broken that cycle yet. Absolutely. David's just popped there in the chat. I don't know if you guys can see. So David, yeah, your crisis succession, driving new benefits and embedding them rapidly. Yeah, they are responding, and we've got greater technology to help us do that. But yeah, employers are going to need to help to bridge some of those gaps, I guess.